Thank you very much, David. I'm really thrilled and honored to be here tonight. I could never have this audience in Tel Aviv, as you can imagine yourself. And I'm really, really happy to be here. You are lucky that you can have this occasion here. Last week I was in Berlin, and the solidarity movement with the Palestinians couldn't find a venue. And finally we had to go all the way to a Copt monastery 400 kilometers from Berlin in order to find a venue in which people can speak about Palestine, can mention the occupation, and God forbid, maybe even say something about the Palestinians as human beings. And I'll get to it later. But the topic today is the deal of the century. I see it almost as an insult that we have to deal with it. The best way is just to ignore it. But it is the United States behind it, and we have to deal with it. And I must say that in many ways I see some positive sides in the deal of the century, so-called. It finally put an end to the masquerade. It finally had torn all the masks. If there was anyone who believed that the United States is a fair mediator, if there was anyone who believed that the United States can play any constructive role in solving the Palestinian problem, here we got the truth in our face, without blah, 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 and nice sentences of the great friend of Palestine, Barack Obama, without all the slogans about mutual values and Western values, freedom and justice. Here we get it in the face, a colonialist paper, a colonialist document calling for injustice, calling for continuing the injustice, and at least we know where do we stand. And that's not unimportant, because this masquerade in which the United States could continue to present itself as a peace seeker, as an ally of Israel, but also of the Palestinians, of justice, of looking for some kind of equality in this part of the world, this is now over. And all the hollow speeches and hollow plans, because some of you are very young. The first American peace plan was in 1971 by William Rogers, and they all looked the same. They all lacked only one thing, a real intention. Because the United States had never an intention to put an end to the occupation, so did Israel. Would there be an American president who would like to put an end to the occupation? The Israeli occupation would have come to its end within weeks or maybe few months. But this never happened, and now at least we see there is even no intention to go for it. What do we get instead? We get a deal. Now the Middle East, the Palestinians, they don't look for a deal. We look for certain justice, not for a deal. We had enough deals, we had Oslo, we had other deals, and look where we are. The occupation today is stronger than ever. The Palestinians, unfortunately, and we have to face reality, are weaker than ever. The world becomes more and more indifferent and hostile to the Palestinian cause because of many reasons. And at this stage, the main lie was exposed. And the lie is that that the occupation is temporary, that occupation is something that we have just to wait to its end and it will come, and that Israel has any kind of intention, together with the United States, to find some kind of way to put an end to this reality. Now we are facing the truth. A deal like this, I feel really, again, a little with this kind of audience to start to explain why this deal is irrelevant or worse than this. I really find it not only unnecessary, but really insulting. I'm sure that there is not one single person in this audience who really believes that with money, the Palestinian can be bought by money, that money can substitute justice or some kind of justice, that money can solve political problems and national problems. And that's the way of thinking. And I must say also something very honest here. When those are the mediators, it can't go anywhere else. Those are even not Israeli friends. Those are the occupation friends. Those are the settlements friends. Those are I don't know if you saw this unbelievable scene last week when the American ambassador to Jerusalem, not to Tel Aviv, the American ambassador to Jerusalem was breaking this wall in Jerusalem in this unbelievable scene under the house, under Palestinian houses, digging for more brutality, digging for more injustice. And the American ambassador stands there as part of this surreal celebration. And here we face it, a deal which not only cannot be taken seriously, but can really, really put an end to all the Palestinian rights and inspirations. Nothing is left. If you read this deal, you remain with nothing. I want to suggest here a different path. I think we are in a stage in which we need the world. When I say we, I mean all those in the Middle East, Palestinians and Israelis who look for some kind of justice. We need the world because Israel will not change by itself. And don't expect any change. As long as Israel and Israelis are not punished and don't pay for the occupation, for the crimes, don't expect any change. It will not come from within Israel. No way. Life in Israel is by far too good. Brainwash system is by far too efficient. Israelis know nothing about the occupation and care nothing about the occupation. Why would they bother? Cafes and restaurants are packed up. Life is smiling. Most of the Israelis declare that they are happy. Number 13, I think, in the world as being the happiest people or almost the happiest people in the world. Why would they bother about what's going on half an hour away from their homes in their backyard? Nobody reports about it, almost nobody, and if it is reported, it's always biased. And unfortunately, we have to realize that change will not come from Israel itself. Change will also not come through niceties. Israel is the darling of the West for so many years, not only of the United States, also of the EU, also of others. And the Europeans, mainly the Europeans, always believed in niceties. They will try to convince the Israelis. They will try to react to their fears because they carry so many fears. They will try to take care of their security because they are the only one who needs security. They will try to relax them about the existential danger because they are the only one who are exposed to an existential danger. A regional superpower with any possible weapon is calling for security and protection and understanding to its history and understanding to its complexes and sentiments and fears. And no, it doesn't go this way. The West tried it for many years. It led to nowhere. It is time to do things. Those who really want to go for a change have to take into account that it will not go through niceties, neither through supporting Israel and believing that through this support we will be able to go for a change, and even not through a domestic change within Israel. This can happen only in the day that Israel and Israelis will pay for the occupation, will be accountable for the crimes. They were never. And as long as this will not happen, nothing will change. And we have to take into account, because this put a special responsibility on the international community, because there is no one left. And when I say international community, I mainly talk about civil societies, people like you, because we know where governments stand today. So the deal of the century is a deal that should be and will be forgotten quickly, but we have to think about the alternative. And the alternative is to start a new discourse, and I'll talk about it tomorrow, the discourse of equal rights. I don't want to get into it now. And the discourse must be of asking Israel, what do you want? You can't have it all. You want a Jewish state? You had to leave the occupation. Too late now. You want to be a democracy? You can't be an occupier. You want to be an occupier? You can't be part of the West and the darling of the West. You can't be all. And those issues must come up. And here we face now a new stage in which criticizing Israel becomes not only impossible, but almost criminal. I never saw such a phenomenon in any public fight, public struggle, in which struggling for justice becomes criminalized. This is unheard of. And the formula is very, very clear and very efficient, and we shouldn't let it be so efficient. You dare to criticize the occupation? You dare to criticize Israel? You dare to have some sympathy with the Palestinians, with the victims? You dare to speak about justice? You know what you are? You are an anti-Semite. And this paralyzes everybody. We shouldn't fall to this trap, because it is a trap. We should ignore those accusations, because not Israel will decide, and even not EU governments, with all the respect, and even not Germany, will decide in what we believe and what not, and what is legitimate and what not. This way of criminalizing a cause for justice, a struggle for justice, is very crucial, because I see what's happening in Europe now, and even in the United States. Half of the states in the United States have already legislations against BDS. And it's not only BDS, we know it, it's immediately everything. There are people of conscience who don't want to buy Nike because it's being manufactured in those sweatshops in Southeast Asia. Would anyone dare to label them as criminals? You might support them, you might be against. In most of the cases, people say those are people of conscience. You might be a fighter for animal rights. Anybody will criminalize the just struggle for animal rights? We want to boycott butcheries. What's wrong in this? We don't want to buy products which are manufactured in an immoral way. What is more noble than this? How did we get into this situation in which those basic morals are becoming a crime? And my friends, you might be against BDS. That's legitimate. Someone can be for BDS, someone else can be against BDS. But to criminalize? In this situation, I see where it goes now. With the Islamophobia, that you know about it more than I do, with the very efficient campaign of Israel of labeling any criticism on Israel as anti-Semitism, our mouths will be silenced. It happens now. Coming back to the deal of the century, if we believe that there is no hope from the American administration, if we think that the EU, except of condemning settlements which Israel learned to live with very easily, the EU is just hollow when it comes to the Middle East. The only hope is the civil societies. Russia invaded Crimea. Within weeks, there were sanctions. Big Russia. 52 years of occupation never brought to any concrete act. And here we face this new phenomena in which not only the world does nothing, the world gradually gets into a stage in which he has also to shut his mouth. You shouldn't agree to it. It has nothing to do with democracy. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. My friend Roger Waters, he's an anti-Semite. This man of conscience who fights for rights in many places, whose father was killed in World War II as an ambulance driver in Italy. Can someone blame him as an anti-Semite, label him as an anti-Semite? Can someone shut his mouth? So we stand here tonight, not in our best times. On one hand, we all lost hope, those who had hope from the United States, the only player who could really make a change. But now at least we know that the United States cannot be relevant anymore with those settler supporters and lunatic diplomats. We face a civil society which gets into a siege. I again come back to Germany. I saw it last week in Germany. I see it in many places. I see the Western media. It's very hard today to criticize Israel in many, many publications. They are succeeding, riding on the wave of Islamophobia, of anti-immigration. Anti-Semitism is in the background, very efficient propaganda system of the Jewish lobby, the Christian lobby, and Israel. And where do we go from here? There's one thing that must be agreed here. The Palestinian cannot take another generation of suffer. I'm following now for 32 years the Palestinian suffer, the Israeli occupation. And I can tell you, I know very little examples in history in which a people suffered so much and was so tolerant. So tolerant. Israelis think that the Palestinians were born to kill. They think that they are cruel and bloodthirst, and they know nothing. Any other people would have become much more aggressive with what we do to them. But we shouldn't lose hope. Many times people complain about my lectures that they all leave with great pessimism. People come and then they go more desperate than they come. So I can say only two things, or maybe three, and by this I'll end. First of all, the unexpected happens a lot in international diplomacy, in international relations, and in domestic politics. If I would have come here in the late 80s and tell you that within months, apartheid system in South Africa is going to fall, Soviet Russia is going to fall, and the Berlin Wall is going to fall within months, I can assure you, friends of Al-Aqsa, you would have never invited me again. You would have think that I'm out of my mind. Nobody had foreseen it, and it happened. I can tell you that many times you see a strong, big tree falling all of a sudden on the ground. You wonder why. It looked so strong and healthy. And then you look inside it and you see how rotten it is. And what is more rotten than the Israeli occupation? Thank you very much.